Good day, everybody. Thank you for attending the webinar today. We appreciate your support. My name is John Hinkle, as it shows right there on the screen. I'm the Pro AV Product Marketing Manager here at NETGEAR. Today, we're going to be talking about Pro AV. No surprise. I'll review the agenda in a moment after I take care of some housekeeping tips here. If you have any questions during the presentation, please enter them into the questions box on your GoToWebinar control panel. We have a couple of awesome guys there who will try to cover all your questions as they come in, and we'll pop in and break if we need to answer them during the presentation. Now, those who stay for the full webinar will be entered into a raffle to win your very own M4250 switch. That's the M4250 10G 2F PoE Plus switch, also known as the GSM 4212P model. So you can get your own. If you stick around through the entire webinar, we'll do a random drawing of names, and I'll announce that at the end of the webinar. So stick around. Also with me today is my good friend, Aurora Multimedia, Director of Product Line Management for Managed Switches, and also he heads up the Pro AV engineering design team. So he is the guy for our Pro AV efforts here at NETGEAR. So without further ado, let's go to the agenda, and you'll see, there's the window, there's the winner. That's right, there's the switch you're going to win. So stick around. So we're going to cover a lot of different things today. We're just going to, I think, start out with just covering some generalities here. The story, really, about AV, from analog to digital and then to AV over IP. So we've transitioned already from analog to digital, and we're still obviously transitioning to AV over IP. But it's actually gotten a lot easier, I think, thanks to the use of a network switch. And certainly with our line of switches, there's no longer a need to wade through the complicated setup guides or spend hours trying to configure a switch for AV over IP. And you can look at a setup like this, Laurent. This is pretty detailed, pretty heavy duty type of installation. But you're seeing these, right? These are common, more common.
That's right, John. And the good thing is that it's actually much simpler than what used to be when we were only digital with the HDMI and all that. You were needing a whole lot more equipment to, first transport from the left-hand side to the right-hand side. Second, switch or route, if you wish, in the matrix. And after that, look at all these applications on the right-hand side. If you want to do multi-view, if you want to do a video wall, you were actually needing additional equipment, right? Processors and so forth. So this transition to AV over IP really streamlines all that, because you're left with your sources. You will always have sources, audio and video sources, your destinations on the right, and just stitch a encoder and a decoder on each side, and your fabric, now the fabric is the switch. And well, needless to say, it got to work, right? If the switch is not doing good, it might actually hurt the overall AV experience. But when the switch is good, then you have streamlined your installation. It's actually much easier this way. Yeah.
And we're here to help, definitely. So we're making it easier, I think, in all these kinds of applications. Sports arenas, large events, high-end homes. Certainly during the pandemic, a lot of homes have upgraded their AV equipment and added AV over IP. And we certainly are the switch platform of choice. We're finding out around the world. In fact, we really are the most recommended switch for AV over IP installs. We can safely say that, confidently say that. And you take a look at some of these partners, our range of partners, from the biggest names in the industry to some of the up and coming heroes in AV over IP technology. These partners have strict certification programs that we have worked through to become officially certified. Other partners may not have as strict a program or a formal program, let's say, but we have worked with them to certify and make sure that everything's fully compatible. And I'm sure Laurent has some examples of this, of how we've worked with all of these customers. I mean, these are the biggest names in the industry.
Absolutely. As you just said, John, you have several forms of certifications, but I mean, just take Crestron with digital media for NVX, Extron, Q-SYS. Those three large manufacturers went through a very, very deep official certification process. And, this really ensures the interoperability. They have our equipment, we have their equipment, and we know how to globally, mutually support our customers. But we can, move the needle and look at all these partners one way or the other. Yes, that is true. They have officially approved globally the NETGEAR switchers for AV, but not only that, service plays a big part too when it comes to support.
Definitely. And our service team extends around the world. I mean, we have some of the guys on the call today. We have others stationed around the world. So that means that no matter where you're located or where your project is located, where your install is, we're going to have somebody give you some help with the network design or troubleshooting as you're installing the system within a short amount of time. Plus, our product management, like Laurent, and engineering staff is also copied on these emails, so they can see what's happening in the field and make changes as we need to based on real-world examples. And all you have to do is send an email to proavdesign@netgear.com. I think you can confidently say no other networking company gives you this kind of support as you're trying to figure out and navigate AV over IP. And Laurent, I know you guys are working weekends and other off times to figure out what's going on with some of these installs and trying to make it easier for these people.
Yes, that is right. Although we sincerely hope that a live event on a Saturday night, that should be working before the weekend, right? We all agree on that. But yes, and I don't want to show the kitchen, but behind this email, proavdesign@netgear.com, of course, we have a database, we have a portal, it's called Jira. So any email from you that creates a ticket, and the entire team can see this ticket and catch it. So you know that just by sending an email to proavdesign@netgear.com, your ticket is created, and one of the team members will just pick you up, and you have the guarantee that it's very straightforward. We do not have an official ETA, but 99.9% of all the requests are managed largely under 2 hours. And as you can see, we don't ask you to connect to a portal, register, enter a ticket, or use chat. We really understood that for you, especially in time-sensitive situations, you've got to have a capable sales engineer or a tech support engineer or even a product manager, to help you straightforward. So that is very unique in the industry. That's right, John.
And there's more stuff that we do that may not be as unique as that Pro AV design community, for sure, Pro AV design team, but we do offer a limited lifetime warranty, and huge benefit is a next business day replacement, NBD. That's big. If you're on the job and something happens as you're configuring it, we'll work with you and make sure you get that replacement as we can next business day, depending on where you are in the world, of course. But also, we have a community on community.netgear.com. There's a business section, and there's an AV over IP specific section of that community website to help answer questions. And people answer them on their own. It's great. You can talk amongst yourselves. There's certainly some questions on Reddit, commercial AV group, and other places. And we're all trying to hang out in those places to help make sure your questions are answered. But the best way for system design ahead of time and any other questions, proavdesign@netgear.com, and we'll work with you for that. So that's kind of behind the scenes of what we stand for, where things are going with NETGEAR. We're here to talk about some products here, and we really have 3 different product lines. We have, as we say, engineered for AV over IP switches, and a range of sizes, and we'll show you some stats and some specs on some of them, and you can see some of the switches right here. But really, it's a huge range of switches with port counts and sizes, some half rack width on the M43s, full rack width, and all kinds of things, and more things coming, by the way. They're really grouped into the 3 different series, the M4250, with 6 models that were just released in September. I guess that's a year ago now. Wow. Is that right? 11 models altogether now with the M4250 line. M4300 switches were introduced a long time ago and were the only switches really from NETGEAR that were really engineered for AV to begin with, and now we've expanded that. So they've had new firmware and updates to come up with the times and work really well out of the box for a lot of installations. The 4500s give you 100 gig capabilities for your core switches for these applications. And there's all kinds of possibilities for different port counts and modules. And we have that awesome, you can see on the right side there, the 96X switch. And that's one of our big switches. We'll talk about that coming up too. But first, Laurent, take us through some of the 4250 line here.
Yes, John, thank you. Because the 4250 is really the latest and the greatest. And see, of course, they are dedicated to the 1G, 1 gig video over IP, but they are so different. There's nothing like that in the NETGEAR portfolio, right? This is a black metal design. You have LEDs on the front, but you have the IOs ports on the back. Of course, if you want to reverse this and have the fronts on the front, the ports on the front, you can do that as well. But you know, they are very unassuming in an AV rack. And in addition to the hardware with a lot of features, including a on-off switch, threaded holes everywhere for visa plates, or we also understood that, you know, it was about time we had to redesign the software, because so far we were using IT switchers for AV. But, you know, not all AV installers have the IT background to do complex GUIs or Telnet or SSH. So this time we have a dedicated AV user interface, and that is the foundation of our initiative moving forward. So I'm really impatient to see you, to show, you know, what's new, because we keep enhancing. You said that, John. We went live with the 4250 first wave almost a year ago, and since then we have introduced the 24 and the 48 ports. Some of us will say not enough, right? Because we did not produce enough. Well, that's another story. There's a lot of demand, and we are extremely honored about that. But see, from that time, we have published, you know, roughly one major maintenance release a quarter. So of course, right now we are busy working on the next one for maybe October 1st. But see, with this 130224, what's up? Well, for the first time ever, new tech. So this business unit called NDI TV, they have approved 2 profiles that we have worked out between NDI, product management, tech support organizations, NETGEAR, engineering and product management. We have tested and validated NDI4 with a dedicated profile, and the great NDI5, the latest version of NDI, that for the first time, we believe, allows for not only video with NDI5, but also audio in the same profile, in the same VLAN, so that you can bombard your production server, your vMix or OBS with NDI videos and Dante in the same VLAN. So we'll use those NDI profiles right next, right, with the demo. But also, I wanted to spend some time pre-explain the multicast enhancements that we have come up with, because I want you all to understand the logic. The more you will work with us, sending your request to the proavdesign@netgear.com, the more help you will require from us. Of course, we are going to help you, but we try to, you know, keep a trace so that we know what must be enhanced in the software to, you know, simplify that so that next time you don't need us. So multicast control, sometimes you have devices, they don't behave correctly, they get flooded by multicast. Think of a control processor for, you know, a large video AV brand. Sometimes those processors will wrongly advertise themselves as a router, and they will get all the multicast, and of course they will be irresponsive. So now we can easily block multicast on certain ports when we just don't want to send any multicast. Reversely, if you are a Mac OS user, if you have a Dante virtual audio card, sometimes you know that, you know, this will not be really IGMP compliant. compliant, all that. So the opposite is that sometimes you got to flood the multicast, on purpose, right? To just send the multicast to a specific node. And this is what I am going to demo with you real quick, because now you can either block or force multicast independently from the IGMP logic. You'll see that we have made a lot of improvements for a better management of the PTP stamping, so that you can enable or disable the PTP stamp for the transparent clock. And well, I'm impatient now to go get my hands dirty. You'll see that we can provision profiles even without selecting any port, so that you can pave the way for, let's go, John. What is coming up next? So what we didn't change, of course, is the IGMP Plus. We have explained that already, but we keep receiving questions about that. What is the RFC? Well, there is no RFC, because this is an enhancement to the IGMP RFC. Okay, so IGMP Plus is only at NETGEAR. IGMP Plus is fantastic to begin with, because with the standard IGMP, the RFC, if your carrier is up there, all your switchers will flood the multicast to the carrier. This is how it works. The carrier got to know which multicast stream there is on the network. So with IGMP Plus, you don't flood anymore anything. This is entirely automatic. You just assemble your network with the switchers, the big switch at the top, the little switches at the edge. It's a star topology most of the time, but you can do a daisy chain as well if you want. And well, nothing will flood, everything will stay local. The IGMP is running on every switch. IGMP Plus is taking care of the uplinks, and only if you have a subscriber somewhere asking for a stream, then that stream will go up to the carrier and go down. So I'm going to tell you the secret today, because we got these questions all the time. So let me tell you the secret. What's the secret sauce? Well, it's very easy. We don't flood the streams to the carrier. We just flood the reports, so that the carrier is aware of what is where, right? But we don't send the video, because the carrier doesn't need it with IGMP Plus. We just send it when there is a need somewhere else in the network. So there's no configuration. It's called IGMP Plus. It is replacing IGMP. And of course, it works with third-party Ethernet switches. If you have other switchers in the network, well, they will certainly not do IGMP Plus, but we won't flood them, guaranteed.
Nice, nice. And we have a couple of new features to talk about as well.
Of course. So IGMP Plus was available already across the board, right? For 4500s, 43, 4250. What now 4250 brought to the table is the auto trunk. So we don't need to configure anything anymore. If you have several switches with the 4250s, if you have configured your blue, your orange, and your other profiles, then, well, as soon as you connect those switches together, the interconnect will tag the VLANs, and the trunking is automatic. So you don't have to take care of the uplinks anymore. The NETGEAR AV line does it for you. But what if you need more than one link in between two switches? Well, this is called a link aggregation group, right? A lag. Actually, you could even stack, but stacking doesn't scale. So the 4250 instead will use link aggregation. And as soon as you connect more than one port, of course, spanning tree is taking off, right? But in less than 2 seconds, spanning tree is removed, because a link aggregation group is dynamically formed for you. So if you combine the trunking and the automatic lag, well, you just connect the switches together, and the VLANs can go through them. The link aggregation is done for you, and you're ready to go, focusing on what is really important. That's your AV. That's your Dante VLAN, your AVB VLAN, your NVX VLAN. Everything else will be taken care of. So auto trunk, auto lag, and IGMP Plus for the automatic multicasting really I think that we can say that, with the 4250 line of switches, we actually let you really work on what is important for your project. It's definitely not the switching.
Laurent, I see something in the top corner here, the upper right corner. It says breaking news. So we've talked about these for the 4250s. What does that breaking news have to do with this auto trunk, auto lag?
Well, because I'm going to break law as well. NETGEAR is a public company, so we should not disclose what's coming, right? The roadmap, the future things. But well, it's about time. So I got this allowance. Auto trunk and auto lag is coming. They are coming to the 4300s. Very popular demand. Lot of customers ask for it. So we worked hard. We paved the way with the 4250. The 4300s will do the same so that you will be able to assemble, mix and match, and connect the 4250s and the 4300s dynamically with zero configuration moving forward. So it's coming soon.
That's awesome. That's really good news. So I know we have so much to talk about. We're almost a half an hour in here. Let's talk about your live demo today. And this shows exactly the configuration you have in your place in Paris.
Thank you. Yes. So it might seem ambitious. So of course, bear with me, bear with us, because in a live demo, a lot of things can happen. That's called the demo effect. But see, what we are going to do, we are going to build an AV network with a core switch up there, a fiber switch acting as the core, and 3 switches down there connecting to the core with several VLANs, several profiles. Because we have this brand new NDI TV approval for NDI, we are going to use NDI for video. We are going to use Dante audio for VLAN, and because we don't want to have the control in those separate VLANs, we are going to create a dedicated profile, a dedicated VLAN for control, so that the touch panels, all the processors will be outside, and we are going to use layer 3 routing so that any control device can access any of the VLANs, the multicast staying at the VLAN level, of course. So actually, the goal here really is to show you that this topology will be fairly automatic. We are just going to tell the switches, well, which port we want to use for each class of device. The IP addresses are down there. We want to have a layer 3 installation, so we are going to use such a class C scope. And well, John, I think I'm ready to go. You can switch the presenters. Thank you in advance.
Let's do it. And we rehearsed this, so it's going to be seamless.
That should be, yeah, actually. I am actually, yes, it's up. Sorry about that.
Here we go.
That should be up now. All right. So let me explain to you how we are going to do. First and foremost, we have the first switch up there, right? And this switch is connecting using the default VLAN 1 to the rest of my network. So I am going to show it to you. This 16-port fiber switch is actually connected through a 4300 switch I have somewhere here in this network. It's a segment, right? So at this time, only this fiber switch got a connection to my network via the VLAN 1. And the 3 other switches down there, you are going to ask me, well, in the NMS 300 management software that we have, how come can you see them if they are disconnected? Well, because I'm using a trick. I'm also managing these switches with the out-of-band, right? So I have a dedicated network for out-of-band management. So that's why I am aware that these switches are somewhere, but they are not physically connected to my 192.168.254.24 network. So let's connect to that switch and see what is going on. All right. So for this, we are going to open up the IP address of this 16-port switch. And let me make sure I have, yes, I have it. And on the left hand side, you have the AV user interface. On the right hand side, maybe we'll go there and visit a few things if we have time, but that's the advanced IT interface like any other 4300 switch, right? And logging in, I should see only one connection on that switch. This is the port 9, and this is the port going to my network. Let's control that quickly. That's right? The interface on the right-hand side, the Z interface, is the interface number 9. All right. So this is what I have. The first thing I want to do with you is that I want to physically connect those cables, okay? So that we have two 1G links to that 8-port PoE switch on the left, one 10G link to that multi-gig switch in the middle, and 4 10G links, we are going to use DAC cables, to that larger 48-port switch, Ultra PoE down there, all right? So by just connecting them, I am really assuming that, well, the link aggregation, the auto trunking, everything will be ready to go. And, well, bear with me. I am going to change my view so that you can see me physically connecting the switches. Let's go. Connecting the first switch, connecting the second switch, and connecting the third switch. All right. So the cables were actually already kind of, nearby. I just pushed the cables in the different ports, fiber and copper. So now let's see in the interface of the fiber switch up there, we should see some new things, right? Let me refresh that page. And because I just pushed the cables into the 3 other switches, now I should see those links coming up. I have my link aggregation on the left going to the 8-port PoE switch. I have my 10 gig link going to my multi-gig, and I have my 4 10G ports going to the 48-port switch. If I visit the link aggregation, I should see 2 lags, right? Because one of the switches, it's a single link, so it's not a lag, but I have my lag number 1 with the 4 ports on the right, and I have my lag number 2 on the ports on the left. So my switch number 1, my core switch, is now physically connected to the others. This core switch picked up a DHCP address on my network, which is a 254.1 that I can see here. Let's take a look to the NMS 300. What should I see, John, now? What should you expect?
Well, everything should be there in front of you. It should have the links already indicated for you of your entire system, right?
Absolutely. You're a true network engineer by now. Let's refresh that page.
No.
Here I go. So now you have this network topology that really looks like, the diagram that we have. So the links are up. All right. So let's now do the second step. The second step is that because this is our core switch, we are going to provision those VLANs and profiles. We want the VLAN 10 for NDI. We want the profile Dante with the VLAN 20. And the control on the VLAN 100, right? And, well, we want the VLAN 100 everywhere to be a layer 3 VLAN so that I can access, for instance, using a Crestron CP3N or a later CP4N device. I want this device to be able to reach all the other products in the VLANs. So it got to be layer 3. So, John, if you want to go layer 3 with VLANing, the easiest is probably to do it on the core switch, right? We are going to enable layer 3 on those VLANs on the core switch. And while we are at it, we are going to ask the core switch to deliver DHCP addresses with the DHCP server. So for the video, we are going to use a 192.168.10.0.24 network, and the core switch will act as a DHCP server. And we'll do the same for Dante using the 20 prefix, and for control using the 100 prefix. Okay, so let's provision those EV profiles with the right template and activate layer 3. Next, the last and third thing we'll do, we will then tell the switches down there which ports need to be used for those things. But you know what, John? We will not do layer 3 down there. No need, right? Because that's a simple network. It's line rate. So we will just do layer 3 at the top and stay layer 2. No routing, nothing down there, because everything, the routing will be achieved using the core switch. And we'll test it, okay? Because it's okay. We want to configure stuff, but we need to test it. So we'll do so. All right. So let's connect to the fiber switch. Let's go to the network profiles, and let's start with the profile templates. The first thing we are going to do is the video profile. So we are going to find the NDI profile. The first profile is the NDI 4. The second profile is the NDI 5. I can tell you, John, that I am a fan of NDI 5. It's RUDP. It really works like a charm. But, you know, many cameras are still NDI 4. So, you know, it doesn't matter for today, but let's use the mainstream NDI 4 for now. That would be the exact same for NDI 5. Fire up this profile page. We are not going to select any port because, you know, we don't need on the core. Auto lag and auto trunk is taken care. But I just want to declare this profile with my NDI. We are going to use the VLAN 10. We are going to use a blue color for NDI. And I want to do layer 3. I do want that. So remember, we said that we are going to use a 192.168.10 as a prefix. And let's use 254. That's the layer 3 IP address static that we want on that VLAN, on that core switch. And yes, sir, we want to do DHCP server so that all the members of that VLAN will get their DHCP address. They will use the 10.254 as their router. We are going to stop the pool at 10.10 so that I have some free fixed IP addresses if I want. And we are going to go all the way up to the 100. That's far than enough. For that. And if you have a DNS server, that's a good thing to tell so that the DHCP addresses and the clients will get and use that DHCP server. On my network over here, this is this one, the 192.168.1254. So quick recap, we've selected the NDI 4. We said it's a VLAN 10. We want the blue color, and that's a DHCP server using the 192.168.10 scheme. Apply it. So we have just provisioned the NDI video profile on the VLAN 10 with that DHCP. And again, we did not select any port. Come on. So you know what? We are sending a lot of commands to that switch, you know, because it's layer 3. You have the commands for the DHCP server. So it took approximately 10 seconds. All right. So this profile has been set up. Again, no port participation because, you know, it's all dynamic with auto trunk. All right, let's now do the Dante profile. So we said it was going to be the VLAN 20, no port. That is my Dante primary, right? And VLAN 20, which color did we get? Well, we got the orange color for that one. So let's select orange, enabling the layer 3 for routing. Let's select a 192.168.20, 254 for this one. Activate the DHCP server, starting the pool from 10 all the way up to 100. And just tell the switch for the DHCP server to use the DNS server that is available on your network. If you don't have any, you can use Google, right? 8888 if you want. All right, apply.
Some of these really go
So
to the best practices that we talk about, and we have the 10 tips coming up a little bit later. But some of these are just organizing your network and making sure you use consistent numbering schemes. You do the 10 to 100 and IP address, things like that will make your life so much easier, right?
that is right. It's a good way. So of course I'm using those Class C typical home LAN addresses. If you don't like it, you can use 172 Class B, whatever. But it's a good way, because if your VLAN number corresponds to that prefix in the IP addresses, you have a good IP scheme, easy to remember. All right. So now the Dante is done. I just need to take care of my third VLAN, which is control, for my control processors, right? So for control, you know, it's unicast. I mean, there's no real multimedia or AV in the control. It's the data profile that we can use. This is going to be my control. The VLAN 100 is what I want to use. Because we are optimistic, we can say that the control should be green, right? Because that's easy enough. And yes, let's go layer 3. This time I want to use a 192.168.100.254. And of course, I want the DHCP server so that all my control processors get their IP addresses out of that VLAN. All right, my DNS server, it's still the same. And we can apply this. It's good to go. All right. So another 10 seconds, we have taken care of the top switch, and we actually configured the layer 3 on that top switch with that table on the bottom left, right? So you have your 3 VLANs. The VLAN 1 is a DHCP client itself, right, from the rest of the network. That's where the internet connectivity comes from. But you have configured 3 static and layer 3 routed VLANs up there. Okay, so now let's take care of the other switches. So I could actually show you what is the IP address that the other switches did catch on the network. Well, despite the fact I use out of band, I just want to show you, how it should be done. So of course, I need to relog on my central core switch that I'm using as a DHCP server on the rest of the network. If I go to the DHCP server, into the services, and into the bindings, I will see that, my other switches did catch the 2, 3, and 4 sequentially, okay? So I know already what other switches are connected. But on the 4250, you also have the neighbor page, right? And the neighboring view should also tell us, what do we have on those on the network. But here, of course, I see the out of band information because I'm using the out of band. So that's why the DHCP server is quite a good thing, because you could then just see the other addresses. All right, so let's connect to the 8-port switch, the first one. And on this one, what did we get? Well, we have the audio for Dante and the control, right? So my IP address is the 168.254.2. That should be also visible in the management VLAN, which is the default VLAN with all ports belonging to it. And now we are going to use audio Dante. All right. And we are going to select maybe the 4 first ports. That's my Dante primary. My VLAN ID is the VLAN 20. And for audio, we selected orange on the other switch, right? So let's select orange. And that's it. We do not want to do any layer 3 here, because it is going to be done at the core. So we can stay layer 2. Easy, easy, really. So we just declared Dante on the first 4 ports. What else? Well, we need to do control on that 8-port switch. Let's go. My first 8 ports are orange. Let's select the data. We are going to use the 4 next ports. Control on VLAN 100. Oops, sorry. with a green color for hope, right? Okay. And apply. Same thing. This is going to be layer 2 at the edge. The routing will be done at the core. So we are done for the left switch. We are going to do the exact same quickly on the multi-gig switch in the middle. But see, the left switch, you have your Dante and your data going on. Connecting to the multi-gig switch, this time we have a mix of everything to do. We have video NDI, Dante, and control on the middle multi-gig switch. All right, so let's do that. Network profiles. Let's start with Dante, for instance. We are going to use the 4 first ports on that one too. Dante, VLAN 20, orange color. All right. Next is going to be NDI for the VLAN 10 in blue. And last will be the VLAN 100 in green for control on that multi-gig switch. All right. I told you the demo effect, you have maybe some latency in the process, but that is coming. All right. So NDI 4, because that's the version of NDI we have on all our NDI equipment and cameras today, NDI 4. Do you know, John, what is NDI 4 when it comes to multicast? It's MTCP, actually. All right. And the color for the blue NDI, VLAN 10, so far, so good. Remain the VLAN 100. So while this is processing, we can actually fire up the last switch. It will be up this time when we need it, because that's the last one we want to configure. All right. So NDI is now up on the middle switch. Let's not forget the control, because we want to do control maybe on 9, 10, 11, 12. For my control and DSPs and other control processors, right? VLAN 100, and the color for control is the green. All right, we apply that. So let's start with the 48 port to gain some time. On the 48 port switch, again, but we have way more ports on this one. This is our fabric, right? We want to do the all 3 combined as well. Let's take a look to the multi-gig switch. This one is ready. The left switch is ready as well. Let's quickly do that now on this 48 port switch. All right. So let's start with the audio. And well,
sorry, you've done this a million times. You're really fast, but it is this easy, really. That's the. I mean, he's not really hiding.
You know what I am not telling you is that if we got to do this in the IT interface for the VLANing, for the port membership, for the DSCP, for the multicasting, for the PTP, for the bonjour, all these operations, that you got to do for NDI, for all those protocols, it takes a long time, right? So here it's really automation.
We're talking, this is 15 minutes so far. That's it. And while we have to wrap up by the hour, you'll have all this done in 15 minutes. And while talking while you're doing it too. So not bad.
Oh, absolutely. So NDI is done. It's blue, right? And I took the first half, the 24 first ports on that switch. All right.
Nice.
Actually, that should, I told you about the demo effect. You always have a little demo effect, but that's coming. That's coming. I can tell you.
Wow.
It's coming. All right. So while it is processing, we got now to do VLAN 20 and VLAN 100. And all right, so the NDI has been done on the first 24 ports. Let's quickly do some Dante, right? This time using the left ports, maybe these guys on the left on the second row. Well, this is my Dante primary. VLAN 20. right? And the color is orange. And well, next we want to experiment this, right? We want to see how this layer 3 operations will work, right? Apply. For control, we are going to use the VLAN 100 again. So of course, the color doesn't really matter. It's good for you that you keep the same color across the board, but it will not burden the switches if you do not, okay? What is really important, of course, is the VLAN ID, the VLAN number, right? You got to have the same VLAN numbers across the switches. All right, now we can select the data for the last group of ports that we want to use today. Let's take those 6 ports over here. This is your control, right? And this is the VLAN 100 with a color for hope, because I really hope it's going to work, which is green. All right, apply. So officially, I can tell you that this AV job on the networking side of things is done, okay? We didn't save any of it, but we are certainly going to do that so that it survives reboot. But we took care of the core switch up there. We took care of the 3 edge switches down there. We have provisioned and configured layer 3 DHCP servers and routing on the top switch. And we stay layer 2, but nevertheless, we have told where the ports are, right? So now I have my green, my orange, and my blue. Might not be the perfect same colors, but you see the point, right? And now I have my 3 other groups on the middle switch, and I have this. And in essence, now any device in any profile can see or configure or monitor or control any other device. So, John, I have a device that we are going to connect to the switch number 1, the small 8-port switch up there. Do you want to see that device in the Dante VLAN 20 or the control VLAN 100? You tell me, it doesn't matter to me.
Dante.
Okay, Dante. So I am going to connect this device into the left ports for Dante, right?
And then to go to webinar, I think you can scroll down or make those cameras bigger if you want to see that. He has the whole switch live behind him.
So this is a PoE device, and of course this device got to boot, but we should start to see on the 8-port switch that some PoE operation is going to go on.
And it rings the network that's outlined, right, when it starts having traffic.
Yeah, actually, that's the demo effect. You probably don't see it. I connected it to the multi-gig switch up there, the multi-gig switch over here. So now if I go to the overview page, I should see, this connection over there. But there is no PoE, my friend, on the multi-gig version. So my device cannot boot up, right? So I picked up the wrong switch. Let me disconnect and connect to the right switch.
Yeah. See, big in marketing course, I'll spin this, that this is a great learning message, or teaching moment, Laurent. It's a common thing people will do. So you're teaching us.
Yeah. So now this 8-port switch, see, instantly, this 8-port switch tells me in the power over Ethernet section that, there's something on the port 1, right, that I just connected. This is coming at 14.2 watts. And well, I have a connection over here. In the overview page, I should also see, this information. So this device is coming up, right? It will require like probably 30 seconds to boot. Unfortunately, in this lab for this webinar, I didn't have true devices, so I'm using a switch. I'm using a switch that can be powered by PoE so that we can see it. So Dante VLAN port 1. If I go to the neighbor page for the neighborhood, this switch is a GSM 5212 in the old M4100 line. And the IP address, well, you know, this switch did not acquire an IP address as of yet. This is LLDP. Let's refresh, because we got to know the IP address of that switch if we want to play with it and see if that's layer 3. All right, we have the 192.168.2010. Of course, because John, you created a DHCP server at the core for the Dante VLAN 20, starting the pool at the number 10. So this is the 2010. So now you have one device up there on port 1. The test that we want to see is, can we ping that 192.168.2010 from anywhere in the network, for instance, from the core switch? Because if yes, it means that from any VLAN you can ping this Dante device in the VLAN 20. So to do that, to control this, we are just going to the 16-port fiber switch, going to the diagnostics, going to the troubleshooting, because here that's fairly easy to do. 20 VLAN 20 for audio, right? 2010, and we are going to ping that device. And suspense.
Drum roll, please.
3 packets transmitted, 3 packets received. So the layer 3 is working. From the core switch, I can ping that device. So I know that the time is running against us, but John, if you allow me for one more minute, I would like to use this device that we just connected on the port 1 to demo quickly the new function that we have for forcing the multicast or reversely blocking the multicast, okay? Because it came to us with you, all of you, a number of times together, right? You sometimes have to do that because your devices don't behave correctly. So see, in this 8-port switch, we are going to use the multicast new section in the 130224. Oops, sorry, I am on the 16-port switch. On the 8-port switch, I was saying, multicast section, we want to configure the port 1 that is connected up there. And we are going to select that port 1. And if that port 1 is a device that you want to block multicast from, or to, if you wish, we are going to select that port, say block multicast, and maybe select all the multicast networking range from 224 to 239. Just say apply. By doing that, instantly, your port number 1 will not get any more multicast, okay? But maybe this is not what you wanted to do. Let's revert back to default on that port so that we get back and remove that restriction. This time, this is your Dante VLAN. Let's say I just plugged a macOS computer. I have a Dante virtual sound card, you know, and I'm not seeing any Dante. Yeah, because, well, on macOS, the Dante virtual sound card is not IGMP compliant, really. So you want to send the Dante to that port instead. You are going to force the multicast. And maybe you will not force all the multicast addresses, because you know that Dante, for the multicast payload, will use the 239 only. Okay, the PTP, the 224, all that is reserved. It's getting there anyway. But the 239 is really what you want to forward and force. All right. Click apply. And now your macOS computer will get all the Dante multicast starting with 239. So this block and force new tool, really, that came from you, because we understood that in many AV installations, you have to manage those exceptions and corner cases. So I hope that this was useful. This is recorded, I know. So I trust this will be useful. So John, you know, I am actually resending the presenter mode to you.
Alrighty. That was great. And I don't think we've ever, since I've been doing these, really gotten in that deep on some of this. So it's really nice to go through the whole thing. It's certainly so easy to do, but the recording will come in handy, I think, for people to go back and review all that. So nice job with that. And what we wanted to do is kind of cover a bunch of these top 10 tips. And I know we have about 2 or 3 minutes left here. So what you can do is, these are the top 10 tips. We're going to have another webinar in November, I think we're looking at, to cover all these in a full hour. So stay tuned for that, and stay tuned to our social media for that. But here are the top 10 tips in general, using approved switches, get some training. Just check out your requirements first. Do the math for all your uplinks. Make sure you have all that squared away first. Use VLANs, as Laurent showed you here as well, to help segregate that traffic, keep them separate from each other. Don't forget the ports are duplex. QoS is not magic. Design in scalability, flexibility of switches. Use one of our modular switches. Our M96X switch is a good one for that. Create a dedicated AV network. Separate it from the IT. They don't need to be converged. You can connect them via control if you need to, but keep that AV network separate, and your IT admin will thank you. And then modules. So don't trust your system to just a cheap, crappy module. Use a good transceiver that will plug in that SFP port and make things work correctly. So we tended to take a little more time on these, but I'm going to brush through them really quickly as we come up to the top of the hour. We can stick around if you guys like. I haven't been keeping tabs on all the questions, but I think our team has been cracking all those. So I think we don't have to worry about those. I do want to impart the most important tip: contact us first before the installation. And we talked about this before, Pro AV Design at netgear.com. It's really simple. You can download the PDF of these top 10 tips if you can't wait till November. That's a long time away now. So netgear.com/top10tips will get you that PDF right away. That's a really useful tool. And I want to thank all of our system engineers for those inputs. That came from our guys who are on the Pro AV design team, including Laurent, to field these questions day in and day out. And they're hearing some of the frustration and what's going wrong. It could be easily fixed if you just follow some of these top 10 tips. So check out those. For resources in general for NETGEAR and our Pro AV stuff, I mentioned a few of these before, but here's a good list of places you can find more information. We certainly have the product pages. They have a direct link here, which is great. You can go right to those product pages. Our Pro AV playlist has a lot of videos. So netgear.com/ProAVvideo. A lot of webinar recaps, other videos, instructional things. So you'll find those there. And then one of the reasons we're here is to talk about the winner of today's M4250, the 10G2F PoE Plus, our GSM 4212P, one of the great small switches of this 4250 line. And let me go back and just double check this. I actually do use a randomizer. Laurent said it earlier. So I take all the attendees who are here and still here and randomize this and hit a button and then make sure they're still around, because you have to be here for the whole thing. So our winner today is Carl Eifrig. Hope I said your name right. E-I-F-R-I-G, Carl with a K. You are the winner, and you need to send us an email to nachannelmarketing@netgear.com. nachannelmarketing@netgear.com. This is for U.S. addresses only, and you we'll send you that switch as soon as we can. We have that switch in stock. That's an easy one. As we mentioned, a recording of this webinar will be sent out to all of you attendees and anybody registered for that matter. If you have any other questions, you can reach us at that email address. You can find Laurent and myself certainly on social media, on LinkedIn, on Twitter as well. So we have some other great webinars planned for you on Pro AV and other topics for NETGEAR. Check our calendar on our website, and you'll see those when we have them ready for you. Laurent, anything else to add to this? We're up on the hour. You covered a lot.
Oh, yeah. Thank you, John. And sorry for being a little long. But, we configured 4 entire switches, layer 3 DHCP, top to down. So I hope it was a good thing. And I just wanted to congratulate Carl. And Carl, if you don't memorize the NA channel marketing, netgear.com, just use Pro AV Design at netgear.com. You will be welcome over there too. Thank you.
Awesome. Well, thank you all for showing up. I really appreciate your time, and thank you for your interest in NETGEAR and our Pro AV switches, and we'll look forward to seeing you next time. Thanks a lot.